Okay, good morning, Chair. Everyone's admitted from the waiting room, and we are now recording.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at today's meeting of the ALRB. Even if you are able to hear me now, please go to the bottom of your Zoom application and click on the interpretation button and select either English or Spanish, whichever your preferred language is. To ensure you have good audio quality throughout the meeting. I will pause to relay that in Spanish on our channel.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy en nuestra junta. Tenemos servicio de interpretación al español, pero para escuchar y poder participar en el idioma de español, tiene que elegir dentro de Zoom su lenguaje que está hacia abajo de su pantalla, un glóbulo que dice interpretación. Por favor, haga clic allí y escoja español. Aunque vaya a querer escuchar en inglés, escoja inglés para que pueda tener buen audio. Gracias.
Thank you, Santiago. Good morning. This meeting of the Agricultural Labor Relations Board is now called to order at 10:06. I will first call the roll. Board Member Broad.
Here.
Board Member Flores.
Present.
I know Board Member Hall is on his way, so we'll move past him. Board Member Lightstone.
Here.
Thank you. Also present today from our staff are our Executive Secretary, Santiago Villagomez, and Devika Ganawardena, who will be helping provide technical support for today's meeting. We will start with the open session of the meeting, and then prior to the board going into closed session, there will be an opportunity to provide public comment. Members of the public who indicated they wish to make public comment via email who ahead of the meeting will be called on first. Even if you did not indicate ahead of the meeting, we welcome any and all public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, please either indicate in the chat feature of the Zoom, use the raise your hand function in Zoom, or you can email Devika or Santiago, and their contact information is listed on the agenda, which is available on our homepage at alrb.ca.gov. We do have limited capacity to manage participation during the meeting, and so during the public comment periods as well as other presentations, we ask that everyone who is not speaking, please put your device on mute and only unmute when you are called upon to speak. These instructions are also available on our agenda. Okay. Moving on to our first agenda item, which is to review and approve the meeting minutes from our most recent special meeting on August 15th, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Lightstone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes from August 15th are approved. Our next item is the chair's report, and I have several items to report. First, I want to acknowledge we are just a few days past the Labor Day holiday, which is a big event for all of us, particularly as a labor relations organization, and is a day that is special to many of us and the people that we serve. We are also, since our last meeting, have had California's third annual California Farm Worker Appreciation Day. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge the contributions of all workers, but particularly farm workers, not just through the work that they do, but the invaluable benefits that they provide to our communities and our neighborhoods. And I want to just take a moment of gratitude to thank them and show our appreciation for all that they do for our state. As part of the Labor Day holiday, I also wanted to flag for both my colleagues on the board as well as other members of our organization, a report that was issued by the U.S. Department of the Treasury reflecting on, and it was a white paper on labor unions and the middle class. It's available on Treasury's website, and it came out last week, and it provides a really wonderful overview on the history of the labor movement in the United States, acknowledging that several key groups, such as agricultural workers, the groups that we serve directly, were overlooked in the passage of the National Labor Relations Act. And then it goes through and discusses the theory of unions and the benefits of unions to helping improve the living and working conditions for the working class. There are a few, while I do want to acknowledge that some of this data may not directly encompass farm workers, I do think some of the data can be generally applicable to those that work in the agricultural space. So if you know the notable one is the impact on wage gains, particularly in production occupations, which include food production. Unionization yields about a 20% increase in higher wages for unionized workers than non-unionized workers. The paper also cites the non-wage benefits, such as improved systems to address grievances, stronger seniority protections for senior workers, more benefits including health and vacation, and then also increased workplace safety, another important issue for workers in the agricultural sector. And related to that, it cited research that said that 80% of workers that had high job satisfaction cited a non-wage aspect for that job satisfaction, and that was directly inverse for those that had job dissatisfaction. 80% of workers cited a non-wage issue for dissatisfaction. So you can read more about that paper, more of the detail in that paper. I thought it was very informative and something for us to think about as we try and ensure the promulgation of our act. Okay, moving on to our another topic. I wanted to share with the board that we've had a lot of collaboration recently with the Department of Cannabis Control in the last few months. At their request, we have engaged them in discussion about recommendations for their upcoming rulemaking to implement AB 195. This is legislation that was passed last year, which gave the ALRB authority to receive and investigate complaints from regarding all licensees who may be a party to a labor peace agreement with a non-bona fide union for the purposes of the California's Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Act. AB 195 also lowers the threshold regarding which licensees must sign an LPA. So it lowers it from 20 to 10 employees as of July 1, 2024. As a result of this, they are engaging in a rulemaking, and we have made several recommendations, which include requiring licensees to disclose how many employees they have at the time of license application and submit changes during renewal or other intervals, requiring licensees to notify their employers of all labor organizations with whom the licensee has an LPA with, and to post that LPA with the contact information at the worksite. Upon license renewal, require licensees to notify the Department of Cannabis Control if their worksite has a collective bargaining representative, the applicable unit, and if there is a contract. We also recommended including information in DCC educational materials about federal laws prohibiting licensees from paying unions for LPAs or exchanging anything of value that's prohibited under federal law. These are just a few of the items that we discussed, and some of them, which were making the LPA publicly accessible on the website, have already been implemented. Great minds think alike, and I will ask that Santiago put the link for the LPA, the database that DCC has on their website showing which licensees have an LPA and with whom, for those of you that are interested. Thank you, Santiago. I also wanted to note that tomorrow our senior advisor at Blanco and I will be presenting at the Cannabis Advisory Committee. This is a quarterly meeting with a variety of cannabis stakeholders and the department to talk about issues. We'll be going over the both what our organization does, the Agricultural Labor Relations Act, but there will be a particular focus, and the bulk of our discussion will be on this new labor peace agreement investigation process, which the board issued its first decision about 2 months ago. I will also be joining several other ALRB staff members, including Ed Blanco and Assistant General Counsel Francesca Herrera at the Cannabis Regulation Task Force meeting in late October. This was another requirement by AB 195, and we're excited to join our interagency partners to strategize about how we can help support DCC and the regulatory framework to support high-road businesses in the cannabis industry and, of course, protect workers. Lastly, I wanted to share and thank Santiago and Devika and others who helped facilitate. We have updated eCourt, which is ALRB's case management system, now has a unique identifier for these LPA investigations, so that will ease our ability to keep those materials organized as these complaints come through. That concludes the chair report. Are there any questions? Okay. Our next agenda item is the Executive Officer's Report on Elections, Unfair Labor Practice Complaints and Hearings, which is presented by our Executive Secretary, Santiago.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, board members. For today's report and for our other reports that are presented during our meeting, you can find them at our website on the Meetings tab. Sorry, pulling up my report. For today's report, I have one consolidated complaint to report, and this was filed since all of these items have occurred since the board's last meeting where I reported on August 9th. The first consolidated complaint was filed August 10th, and that was UFW Monterey Mushrooms are the respondents in case number 2019 CL005 SAL, and that's involved the commodity of mushrooms in Santa Cruz County. Two matters have been settled, or the General Counsel has indicated that settlement is imminent or has occurred. In Aquaspace Harvesting, Inc., 2022 CE031 SAL, involving fruits and vegetables, including cauliflower and broccoli in Santa Barbara County. The General Counsel indicated on August 28th that that matter has settled. The next matter is 3H Custom Farming, Inc., case number 2021 CE017 SAL, involving vegetables in Ventura County. And that one, the General Counsel indicated yesterday that the matter is headed for settlement imminently. Since our last board meeting where I reported, 3 administrative orders have issued. Those, in addition to this report, the administrative orders are found on our website under legal searches and administrative orders. The first, Trifunuki Farms, issued on August 11th, and that order is Admin Order 2023-06, where the board reversed a recommendation from the administrative law judge that the board seek enforcement of a subpoena ducis tecum, and that involves the underlying decision of 40 ALRB number 4. Next is National Agricultural Workers Union. This is the involving the second LPA complaint that has been filed. That admin order is 2023-07 and issued on August 16th. That order directed the licensees and challenged labor organization to answer complaint and directed the General Counsel to investigate and report to the board its recommendation and findings regarding the labor peace agreement complaint. The case number that is 2023 LPA 002. Finally, the third administrative order was Ocean Mist Farms, admin order 2023-08, and that issued on August 28th. That order denied the General Counsel's request for enforcement of subpoena ducis tecum, and that involved the underlying board decision 46 ALRB number 5. Finally, the 2 pending matters, one is the NAWA, which is just mentioned, is the labor peace agreement complaint. That was originally filed on July 27th, and the other matter is Ocean Mist Farms. There, the respondent filed a motion to reconsider and or modify the admin order that I just mentioned. That was filed on August 30th, and that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Santiago. Okay, our next agenda item is the litigation report. We do not have any updates, so we will go on to agenda item number 6, which is our General Counsel's report with Julie Montgomery. Julie?
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I have 4 settlements to report today, so I'm really happy to be able to share this information with you all. The first 2 are out of our Visalia region and involve the same employer. There are 2 separate cases filed against Sun Pacific Farming Cooperative, Inc. One was filed in March of 2022, And that charge claimed that Sun Pacific terminated several workers because they complained as a group on behalf of the crew about non-payment of overtime, uncompensated overtime, and the rate of pay and piece rate, and not having enough ladders. And Sun Pacific agreed to pay back pay to the workers, which was in the amount of $27,441, as well as expenses they incurred for the charging parties. And there were 11 discriminatees in addition to the 2 charging parties there. And also they agreed to the standard noticing remedies. And the next charge we settled was one that was filed on October 18th, 2022. And that was also filed against Sun Pacific Farming Cooperative and alleged that Sun Pacific retaliated against 2 workers by terminating their employment for complaining about lack of shade, bathroom conditions, failure to pay for breaks, and for not paying for all the work that was completed. Sun Pacific did agree to back pay of those workers, which was less. It was only $324, but that was the amount that we had assessed was owed, and also to the standard noticing remedies. And then we also have a couple of settlements from the Salinas region. One is of a complaint that was against, I believe it's pronounced Akita Spache Farms. And that charge was filed in July of 2022 and alleged that that company retaliated against a number of workers by changing their working conditions and terminating their employment because they reported to human resources that the foreman was exhibiting favoritism towards certain of their co-workers, and they expressed concerns about the favoritism and the effects on the working conditions. And the ALRB filed a complaint June 30th of this year. And we settled the case and finalized that agreement on September 1st. And the company agreed to pay back pay to the workers, which is $31,123. And that also included interest, excess tax, and some payment in lieu of reinstatement. And the respondent also agreed to the standard noticing remedies in that case. And then finally, I just got notice this morning and quickly added it to my report that we settled Christie Vineyards. And this charge involved a vineyard worker in Monterey County. And that charge was filed in November of 2022 and alleged that Christie Vineyards laid off a worker because they had complained about dangerous working conditions and lack of drinking water. And the working conditions they said were dangerous were that the workers had to lay down on a makeshift contraption to lay netting on vines. It was some rigged contraption that the employer had, I guess, or the contractor or employer had created. And they expressed concern about that and also the lack of drinking water. And so we did find a violation, filed a complaint against Christie on June 29th and settled it just got notice this morning. And Christie agreed that the notice shall be read to all the employees and posted for 60 days. I believe there is no, I don't see back pay. Jessica, if there's back pay on here, let me know. I don't see that there was any back pay owed, but there's the noticing and reading remedies. And we're also going to conduct a supervisor training for all of Christie Vineyards supervisory employees. And then I also want to mention that our Visalia office completed compliance in Wright's Ranches on August 30th, so just last week. And our staff conducted a reading and posting of the notice, and that was to a total of 26 crews, which was 260 workers. And they also put up 5 postings in Fresno County. So that was some work that, our Visalia office was very busy doing last week. And so kudos to both regions and their regional directors and other staff. Deputy General Counsel, I know, provided a lot of support in these cases, as well as all of the regional office staff who worked on these matters. And I'm really happy. I just want to say I'm happy to see that these cases were resolved. A lot of them, or a few of them were resolved in just a few months' time, and there are a couple that were around a year from start to finish. So I'm happy to see that the regions are moving their cases forward and getting resolutions in within reasonable timeframes. I also want to highlight that we had Labor Rights Week last week, which is a collaboration we do every year together with Mexican Consulate and a lot of our other government and nonprofit partners to get information out to workers. And so there's a very large number of events that it would take me too long to go through all of them. But just to know that we had, since our last board meeting, I wrote down 12 live trainings and presentations, 6 Facebook Live radio and TV presentations, 11 in-person community events where staff was distributing materials, and then 4 office hour days where we were providing office hours in remote locations. And I'll just give you a few highlights of some of those events because they're just to give you a taste of what our staff's been doing. So our staff provided in-person training to the Calexico Mexican Consulate staff in mid-August. They also did a training in Spanish to workers with Mixteco interpretation, hosted by a MyCop program in Santa Maria. They did another Spanish, a worker training in Spanish with Mixteco interpretation hosted by MyCop in Oxnard. They provided a presentation for workers together with the Labor Commissioner's Office at the end of August, just last week, that had Purepecha translation or interpretation. And that was also hosted by MyCop in the city of Santa Paula, which is in more rural eastern Ventura County. They provided a presentation at the inauguration ceremony for Labor Rights Week at the San Jose Mexican Consulate office. They did a panel presentation in Spanish for Labor Rights Week hosted by the Mexican Consulate in San Diego, or the San Diego Mexican Consulate. I think they did it in San Marcos. They provided 8 presentations in Spanish for Labor Rights Week at the Calexico office in El Centro in Imperial County. And they also provided a presentation to H-2A workers at the work site, at the H-2A work site, as part of the Mexican Consulate Labor Rights Week in Greenfield in Monterey County. So that was a really special event in which our staff was actually invited into an agricultural field by an employer because we were there with the Mexican Consulate and did that outreach to them in the field. So I thought that was really a great opportunity and collaboration, and really appreciate the Mexican Consulate helping facilitate that. We also did, like I said, there were 6 Facebook Live radio and TV events, including one that we did jointly with Cal OSHA in mid-August. And I think that was on heat and wildfires. We were also interviewed by Radio Bilingüe, actually several times. I think there were like 4 Radio Bilingüe interviews and appearances. And some of those were part of Labor Rights Week with the consulate. And then also, yeah, like I said, we did the 11 tabling events and then the 4 office hour events. So kudos to all the staff and everyone's efforts I know our outreach staff spent a lot of time and energy setting these up and coordinating all of this. And then our office staff just was extremely busy last week doing all these presentations and appearances. And then also on top of that, doing a reading to 25 crews in rights ranches. So kudos to all for their excellent work. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Julie. I want to echo that gratitude, and I also wanted to echo your comments and acknowledge that all of the settlements and the cases that you mentioned in the beginning were all resolved within a year or less. And so I just really appreciate the staff's work on that. I know that's been something we've talked about a lot the past year or so, and so I just appreciate all of that effort, and more importantly, I'm sure that's been a huge benefit to those workers impacted. So thank you for that. I had a few questions on some of the settlements. One, with respect to Sun Pacific, they had issues that, you mentioned the overtime, and then also it sounded like the latter charge there dealt with OSHA issues, and then Christie Vineyards also had OSHA issues. If you're able to share if referrals were made to either Labor Commissioner or Cal OSHA on those issues. I was particularly concerned about the contraption that you mentioned in the Christie Vineyards case. I'd just be curious to see if there are investigations or if there have been any results for those workers related to those issues. And then additionally with Sun Pacific Farming, do you know if an FLC was involved in that operation? Is that something that you're...
Yeah, I think, I'll let the RDs answer, or Francesca, the RDs answer those, as I know they're more familiar, and probably have more information. But I do understand that we did make referrals to Labor Commissioner and OSHA in these cases. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. And I don't know if we know what the result of those referrals were. But Jessica, Yesenia, Francesca, feel free to weigh in.
Sure. On the Christie Vineyards, yes, the staff talks at length with the workers about other agencies and their jurisdiction and potential remedies that they can find there, and we'll also reach out to the agency if the worker is prepared to do that. I can't say in Christie what the result is if there was in fact contact and Cal OSHA investigated, but I know that our staff talked with these workers at length about their potential rights and what they could seek from Cal OSHA.
Okay, great. And then
in relation to Victoria, to answer your question about Sun Pacific, there was a contractor involved in the Sun Pacific 004 case, but not in the 011.
Okay, so the 004, that was the overtime one, not the shade one in October. Okay. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I'm just always kind of curious if when we were seeing some of these violations when an FLC is involved and if that's the issue. Also really pleased to hear that Christie Vineyards is kind of, that a supervisor training was arranged there, and I don't know if that's a possibility in Sun Pacific, but just hearing those types of violations, like lack of shade, failure to pay for breaks, those kinds of things, just call out to me as things where if we can make sure supervisors know what their duties and obligations are, we're just setting everyone else up, the employer, the FLC themselves, or the supervisor, and the workers for success and preventative. So thank you for that update. Really great work, everyone, and also really cool that employer in Greenfield and the Mexican consulate facilitated that presentation in the field to H-2A workers. I think that speaks to the confidence that employer has in the operation and their commitment to following all relevant laws and upholding that. So really great work. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Okay, I also was remiss in acknowledging this was, he's been here for about 15, 20 minutes, but Member Hall has joined us, and I'm glad, Member Hall, to see you and that you're here safely. Thank you for the heads up earlier. So let the record reflect that he is here. Okay, we are not going to have an administrative services report today, so our next agenda item is both the legislative and regulatory report with Chief Board Counsel Todd Ratchin, and I apologize, we're having some video issues, so you'll be able to hear Todd but not see him, but he is here with us.
Okay, so can you hear me through this right now?
Yes, we're getting a thumbs up.
Okay, excellent. Starting with the legislative report, there's a report available on the website, just a few updates to cover since our last meeting with the legislative report in early August. Senate Bill 143 was recently amended in the Assembly on August 28th. This is a budget trailer bill that was amended as it is relevant to us would continue the remote meeting authorization under the Bagley-Keene Act that expired in July. And so this would continue those provisions to allow the board to meet remotely through the end of the year, December 31st, if passed. The other update involves Senate Bill number 544. This is the bill to amend the Bagley-Keene Act to provide a more permanent guide to remote meetings under the Bagley-Keene Act. This bill, as most recently amended, would allow boards to meet remotely, but would require that for at least half of the body's meetings each year, a majority of the members of the state body would need to be physically present in the same place. Are there any questions about the legislative report before I move on just to a brief update on regulations?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, so on regulations, we posted yesterday on the website an update regarding the more comprehensive rulemaking package the board had been working on that includes revisions to our filing and service provisions, as well as other amendments to unfair labor practice, representation, and mandatory mediation and conciliation proceedings. This rulemaking was approved by the Office of Administrative Law and filed with the Secretary of State, and the regulatory amendments will take effect on October 1st. So coming up, more information about that, as well as the final regulatory text, is available on the website. I'll just note for practitioners, maybe one of the more important changes to be aware of is that these amendments would require electronic filing for most practitioners before the Agricultural Labor Relations Board. So please take notice of those amendments.
Thank you, Todd, appreciate that. Any questions for my colleagues? Okay, we will now go on to our next agenda item, which is public comment before the board goes into closed session. Please be advised that the board is unable to adjudicate, comment, or resolve any pending case matter before the board. I will ask our Executive Secretary, Santiago, to go first through the queue and then open it up for any of those that wish to make a comment. As noted, you can indicate that you wish to make a comment by raising your hand with the Zoom feature, letting us know in the chat, or emailing one of our staff members listed on the agenda, Devika or Santiago. We ask that you not put any substantive comments in the chat, and please list your organization if applicable. If you have technical difficulties or miss your turn, we will work to come back to you. And please remember to be on mute unless you are speaking. Santiago, do we have anyone in the queue? Okay. I'll give it a moment, see if anyone wishes to speak. Okay, not seeing any interested parties. We will now gavel into closed session. When the board comes back, we'll have announcements. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, still morning. It is 11:16 and the board has returned back from closed session. Our last agenda item is announcements. One, I will be participating, as well as several members of the administration, in the signing ceremony for the between California Labor and Workforce Development Agency, DIR, EDD, and the ALRB, and the 10 California-based Mexican consulates. That will be at the Sacramento Consulate Office next Thursday, September 14th. It's been long in the making, so excited to participate in that. And then our next regularly scheduled ALRB meeting is Wednesday, September 20th at 10 a.m., and the agenda will be posted at the end of this week. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is now adjourned. Good seeing our members in Glendale. Take care.